I lost a piece of my ear when a guy tried to shoot me. I was on my way home from the pub one night. To get home I had to walk through a rough part of town. I'm not unfamiliar with the area and I know a few people around there on good terms, so I know the rules about walking around there at night. Anyway, in one house there was an argument, and I heard things were getting smashed up. I'll admit, I kinda snitched. I pulled out my phone, opened up Facebook, and sent a message to the local police. Then there was a fucking gunshot. This guy comes running out, and I'm right on the path where he was running to. He just stops, raises his gun and fucking shoots. I think the noise from the explosion from the gunshot hurt more than a bullet ripping out a chunk of my ear. Then again I was probably in shock. I just stood there and froze up. Thankfully the guy didn't stop to make sure he hit me and just kept running as another guy came running out of the house with a gun in his hand too. He asked me where he went, but I was just frozen in shock and had blood running down my neck. Anyway, cops arrived a few minutes later followed by an ambulance. That was 6 years ago now I think. Turns out the guy shot his girlfriend's brother, and it was her dad who came chasing after him. Don't know if this counts as murder, but I was on my way to grab breakfast with my sister. As we left the house there were helicopters flying around outside, and we didn't think much of it. We started down the road and noticed that there were no cars or people anywhere. As we were driving a car was swerving behind us and going super fast. He pulled up next to us and got out with a gun and pointed it right at my sister's face. She slammed on the accelerator and we turned down a few streets until we were sure he wasn't following us. We headed straight home and turned on the news. Turns out he had shot 8 and killed 2 other people in the neighborhood and was later shot by police a few hours later. Edit. Death toll. Didn't happen to me, but to my best friend. Well, one day he was at his apartment playing some Black Ops when he hears a kick at the front door. To his surprise there's 2 guys whom he's never seen before standing over him with a shotgun and a small caliber pistol. One of the is rummaging through his house trying to take anything worth value, while the other one with the shotgun is jamming the steel barrel into the back of my buddy's head/neck. So he says the guy who's running around robbing the places goes back and forth from the apartment to a car waiting outside about 3 to 4 times. By the 4th time, my buddy hears the police yelling "Stop, don't move." Well, that guy takes off running. So by the time he knows it the guy with the shotgun runs out to try and make a getaway also, but as he's in the doorway of the front door surrounded by cops, he pumps the shotgun and gets blown away by the cops in front of my buddy. Thanks for reading. This is my first post on here. Twice actually. I was caught between a road rage by a guy with a gun. Drove very fast and escaped. Much scarier, this other time, when I was interning in a city. Unluckily me and my roommate rented an apartment in a duplex from an older couple. The husband had some psychiatric problem, we never came to know what exactly, but our agent later informed us that the husband had just been released from a mental institution. The couple used to live in the downstairs apartment. So this particular night, me and my roommate were watching a movie when we heard loud noises of fighting coming from downstairs. We thought it's a normal couple fight going on, so we ignored it. Later the noises became louder and there were loud bangings on the couple's house. We decided to peek and see what's happening and found the husband was banging on the door with a gun in the hand. The wife had locked the door from inside, so he became very angry and started coming upstairs with the gun still with him. We became scared AF and ran to our apartment, locked the doors, locked the windows, but we realized that the window near the door was a glass window that anyone could break and come inside, so we blacked out everything and hid under the beds. The husband started pacing outside our door with firing gun in the air. We didn't know if he knew we were inside. The husband then goes and turns off electricity to the entire duplex. Our phones were in the room with that glass window, so we couldn't get the phones either. This started at 8 PM and went on until 2 AM. We were both crying since we were pretty young and frightened and still hidden under the bed. At 2 AM the husband suddenly is talking to a wireman on the phone saying that an electricity fuse has gone bad. We were very suspicious of this because which wireman attends a call that late at night? But to our surprise a wireman comes after 10 minutes and starts back the power. The wife also comes upstairs and all 3 of them pretend like nothing has happened. She knocks on our door and starts talking casually about the electricity. We were shocked as to what was going on. We didn't call the police because they won't believe us, since all of them were pretending that nothing had happened. So we called our families, who then called police, but obviously the couple said nothing happened. So next day we packed our belongings and left the apartment, called the broker who informed us about the husband's mental state, and the same with the wife as well. Didn't happen to me, but I was traveling through Vietnam on a motorbike and was in a city called Da Nang, and one night randomly met a Canadian guy called Mike. As we progressively got more drunk, he told me a crazy story about how his business partner in the Philippines was killed by some hired killers his Filipino wife had employed. They came into a flat he shared with his business partner and put a gun to his head, decided they had the wrong guy, went to the other room and killed his business partner. I didn't believe him, and so I called bullshit. He showed me a documentary someone made about it, and it turned out to be completely true. I was kinda freaked out. I was a prison guard up until a few years ago. One days I was in the seg/shoe/solitary unit, and one of the inmates was unlocked for food. He didn't like his choice. It was the choice he ordered, and long story short had to be restrained to put back in his cell. The food went on the floor and I ended up slipping on it, at which point he got me in a headlock. We laid on the floor. Him on top of me with his arm around my neck. I was face down and couldn't see or do anything to get out of it. I did consider an eye gouge, but he was a biter, and I was actually more worried about losing a finger at the time. I had 2 other guards with me who, and I quote, didn't notice. One of them was on the other side and had his arm, and another officer had his head, but didn't look down to see what he was lying on. The inmate said something along the lines of "let go of me or I will break his neck," and I said "get him off me," or words to that effect. Still they didn't notice. I was there for what felt like ages. He was squeezing really hard, and I had to use both hands to stop him squeezing the life out of me. For a split second I thought this was it, and I honest thought I was going to die staring at this concrete floor. Weirdest thing that I struggled with afterwards was how quickly I accepted it. I almost stopped fighting at one point. Then I heard the footsteps of a dozen other guards come running to the panic alarm which had been pressed. They thankfully could see me at the bottom of this heap. I started to struggle again and asked again to get this guy off me, which thankfully they did really quickly. Physically I wasn't that badly injured. I had a stiff neck/bit of bruising for a few days. Mentally though, I'm almost ashamed to say I lost my nerve/bottle for the job and couldn't deal with confrontation after that very well. I only took 2 days off, which was a mistake, and ended up having a week or 2 off a month later when I physically couldn't walk into the building anymore. I had about 8 to 9 therapy sessions which helped, but ultimately it was leaving the job which got me back to normality. But I'm very hyper aware, more so in new surrounds. I consider it near death. Because at that split moment I almost accepted it, and a calm came over me. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of knowing I was afraid. I wasn't going to beg, which is really weird, because growing up as a kid I was a proper coward. It wasn't until I heard those footsteps that I started to panic again and fight, because now I knew I had a chance to be saved. Took me a while to come to terms with that. My first boyfriend was an abusive alcoholic. He wouldn't let me talk to anyone outside the house. Only while working was I allowed to interact with others. Well, got into my FB and discovered I still talk to many people, and he saw I told some people about what he does to me, and I had some talk about leaving him. So he got extremely wasted, and when I returned home from work he threw me into a glass door, shattering it, punched me repeatedly, then dumped half of his drink on my head. I grabbed the rest of the drink out of his hands and smashed it into his face, and this is where he grabs my throat and squeezes. I was fortunate enough to have one of my many flailing punches and kicks to land on his balls. I broke a finger in the process. Nothing happened. I just left him eventually. That's a whole other story. I was 17, in the front yard with a few friends. Heard a lot of gunshots go off. Not unusual in the South. Noticed 2 guys quickly get in a car on my road, parked about 50 yards from my house, and driving our way. Thought I'd step to the side of the road and ask them what they were doing. The driver slows to a stop, points the gun at my chest, and pulls trigger 3 times. Click, click, click. No bullets. Then speeds off. Immediately I knew something was wrong. There is a mom and pop store around the corner, So me and my friend ran over there. First thing we see is a guy shot dead in parking lot while wife and kid was screaming. I was in shock. Walked in the store to find the store owner in the back, shot dead. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more daily 6 PM Reddit uploads.